The Maricopa County election audit is in its 7th week. The review of 2.1 million votes has been praised and criticized by several Republicans who believe the 2020 presidential election was somehow fraudulent. No proof of widespread fraud has been presented. Now, a handful of Republicans from other states are trying to follow suit with similar investigations. A number of Arizonans have expressed concerns over what precedent this audit sets for future elections and election integrity nationally. Jim Nintzel joins me now. He is the executive editor of the Tucson Weekly. Hi there, Jim. Good to see you again. So last week, 3 Pennsylvania state lawmakers traveled to Arizona to take a look at the Maricopa County election audit, and lawmakers from Georgia are expected to do the same this week. What is the purpose of these visits?
Well, the purpose of the visits, I think, is you have a portion of the Republican Party, including state lawmakers in both those states and many others, who do feel as though the election was in some way rigged against Donald Trump. And they're continuing to sow these seeds of doubt in the results. I mean, in Georgia, you actually did have a hand count already of the election results, and yet they're coming back here to try to figure out, is there something we can duplicate about what's going on in Arizona, which is an audit that has been held up as quite a bit of ridicule over the last few months as it's gotten underway. And there's been concerns whether they're looking for bamboo in the paper or looking for watermarks that don't exist and a lot of other things where they really seem to be making it up as they go along here in Arizona.
So Arizona's State Senate President Karen Fan's emails were recently released last week after a Freedom of Information request by a left-leaning watchdog group. Fan has publicly said the audit is simply to restore faith in the electoral system. Yet in her emails, she said, quote, "I have been in numerous conversations with Rudy Giuliani over the past weeks trying to get this done. I have the full support of him and a personal call from President Trump thanking us for pushing to prove any fraud." So how is she explaining this contradiction?
I think what you're seeing there are emails from Karen Fan to people who are convinced, Republican constituents. There's a sizable number who are convinced that President Trump won the state, that there was some kind of chicanery that led to Biden winning. And so one of the things that these politicians have to do is somehow placate their base who are concerned about this, while also, maintaining the notion that it's just a fact-finding mission. So what you're seeing is 2 different conversations. One aimed at, the voters who are, convinced that that Trump won the state, and another where she's trying to present a much more neutral tone about trying to find out and get to the bottom of any strange happenings. So, I think it's the same thing you see often with politicians who are trying to pander to people who are their constituents while trying to also be able to say, oh, yeah, no, I don't have any preconceived notions about what's going on here.
So this audit has been going on, as you know, for 7 weeks and counting, and the deadline for the audit to be completed is at the end of this month. Jim, why is it taking so long, and what happens if it doesn't end?
Well, that's what they're shooting for. They've had other expectations that they would have been done already with this. I think the Cyber Ninjas, the firm that is handling the audit, has never done an audit before. I think they seriously underestimated the amount of work that went into hand counting 2.1 million ballots that they have up there in Maricopa County. And the whole process of how they're counting these is a little concerning to a lot of people who are watching this unfold, because what they're doing is basically putting ballots up on a lazy Susan. They have 3 people sitting at a table. They spin the ballot around. They're supposed to very quickly mark whether they think that it was Donald Trump or Joe Biden that the voter marked on their ballot, and then they're keeping track of these in batches of 100. Human error is rampant when you do a hand count, so it's more than likely that they will finally come up with some kind of problem with the count that the machine came up with.
Well, 2 weeks ago, I spoke with Maricopa County Recorder Stephen Richer, and here's some of what he said.
What about candidates who are advancing this theory? Are they going to say to voters, it's all rigged, your vote doesn't matter, but by the way, vote for me in 2022? That's just so facially absurd. It's confusing and it's frustrating.
We should mention he is a Republican. Jim, there is now talk of audits expanding to other counties. What has been the political fallout?
It's one of these things where the majority of Arizonans, according to the polling I've seen, do not believe there was fraud. But, somewhere around 3/4 of Republican voters believe there was. And so Republican politicians have to somehow, stay on the good graces of their own voters. But when they go into a general election and they're going to be saying, their comments about alleged voter fraud come out, I don't think it helps them win over independents. And I don't think it helps them win over Democrats. And certainly some districts are so absolutely gerrymandered and one-sided for Republicans that it wouldn't matter if they started talking about how the ballots were hidden away on the moon. But with other districts and statewide races, I think a lot of candidates are going to find themselves in a little bit of trouble trying to win over crossover votes as they campaign in 2 years, because I think a lot of people are going to look at this whole exercise and think it was a Looney Tune.
Yeah, I mean, just remind us, Jim, very quickly before we let you go. I mean, who is paying for this audit?
Well, we don't know who's paying for the audit, and that's part of the problem. The state Senate put up $150,000, but there's a lot more in terms of the cost of this thing. And they've been seeking donations. The OAN network has been asking its viewers to send in money. The My Pillow guy is raising money. There's Overstock.com guy raising money, and they all have their own little fundraisers. We don't know how much they're raising. We don't know where the money's going. Somebody's going to get rich off of this thing, and I think that's a problem. Also, the Secretary of State, a Democrat, Katie Hobbs, who recently announced a run for governor, has pointed out that now that the cyber ninjas have been fiddling around with the voting machines that were used in Maricopa County, they can't use those machines anymore. They're going to have to get new machines because who knows what they did to them. So the taxpayers are going to shell out a lot because of this, but we also have private funders, and we just don't know who they are.
A lot of open questions. Jim Nintzel. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.